everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
And I'm Mike DeLisio.
Today we're taking a look at a game called Railway Boom. I'm not sure what the boom is. Maybe it's a boom of exploding railways, like a Western, I don't know. This is a game from Hisashi Hayashi with development from Simone Luciani. It's a reprint of a game that's like 3 years old, I think, of the same name from Arclight Games, although this one is going to get some more wider distribution. It's a train game in the sense that it's a train game. There's trains in it. Well, yeah. No, I mean it's train games are so subjective. You know, you say train game and people think of a specific style, and this one's an auction game. But if you hate auctions, I would not run away quite yet, because this one has some interesting ideas in it. Let's take a look in the box and we'll be right back. You can see the map here with a bunch of cities in the map, but I want to talk briefly about the bottom of the board here, because this game has a sequence that's going to go through like this, and over the course of this sequence, you're going to have multiple auctions. And the auctions will be different currency, but the way an auction works is you start with the token that's in the back, and they can move up as far as they want to an unoccupied space. And then the next person, and then the next person, and then the next person, and this person decides to pass. Then this person might move up here, then blue passes, so then they go into first, white passes, and once everyone passes, depending on the player count, this is a 4-player game, one would pay that amount, the full amount, 7. Second place also pays full amount, 6. Third place pays half of their amount, 2, and this person, the person last, pays nothing. Now, this is important to know because you have your own board where you're going to have 4 different resources: wood, money, technology, and coal. And these resources are going to be bidding in the auctions. You also have an income track for all 4 of these, as well as an income track for victory points. And as the game progresses, you're going to find ways to move these up to increase your income, but this is where you'll keep track of your actual resources. It's also important to note that whatever resource you're bidding with is also the resource that you'll spend. So the very first thing that players will bid on is train cars, and then they're going to bid with wood, but they'll also spend wood. The winner, you're going to turn over 1 train car per player. We'll take it, each person's going to get a train car in order of the auction winnings. And then also players have a chance to buy more train cars that will cost them wood. And these train cars will be run later in the round. In the second auction, players will be drawing cards equal to the number of players that show various cities on the board. And we're going to put markers in each of these cities, which is where players are going to be auctioning off to start in these different cities where they'll be moving around the board. So the winning bid gets to go first, and that person's going to place a station in a spot, and that's going to increase their income, whatever it shows in that spot. So for example here, my wood income would go up. You also then have 12 build points, and at this point you're going to be spreading out your network from here. At the bottom of each of these hexes shows the cost. So I have 12. Well, that's 2, 5, maybe I want to go here, 8, plus 3 is 11. I'd like to go here, but I only have 12 build points, and this one costs 3 more. But since we bid with money to get these spots on the board, I can just pay extra money to make up the difference. So you could put out more trains. When you go to different cities on the board, you're going to get little train cars, and there's all different train cars matching these that you'll be able to use to get more resources. When you go to these red cities on the outside of the board, you will get some immediate bonuses, like this one here, an income of your choice, or here, just basically some victory points. The technology auction, you're going to draw sets of 3 cards, split into groups of 3, and then whoever wins picks one of these groups of 3. Now, the groups of 3, they have a cost to them. You always put the cheapest one, and when you take a group, everyone's going to pick one group, so everyone gets something every auction. You'll get one group, you get the first card for free, and then you may buy the other 2 cards if you want with extra technology resources. Sometimes they give you immediate benefits. Sometimes they give you a benefit that you can use once per round. Like this one here says, for 4 technology, once per round, I could put a train anywhere on the board next to one of my other trains. Some just give you immediate benefits, like this gives me 2 technology income, or 1 wood income, and 1 technology, or 3 resources of my choice. After those first 3 auctions, everyone's going to look at all your incomes and gain that much on the different tracks, which would include the Victory Point track here going around the board. And then you're going to run your trains. When you run your trains, you can run as many trains as you want. Everyone has a starting train that costs no oil to run, but this one here costs 1. And if I want to use these 2 cards, that would cost me 2 and 1, and this is all in coal. Each train can hold some little luggage cars, so I might put a wood here, and 2 tech, and a Victory Point in the top one. And these you'll be collecting from putting trains out on the board. So when I want this train, it just gives me 1 wood. This train gives me 2 technology and 1 Victory Point. Then I come down to this, it gives me 2 Victory Points, and it says if I have 2 technology cars here, I get 1 technology income. Well, that's pretty good. It conveniently worked out, and this one simply gives me 2 points. And so running your train cars can give you a lot of resources. And all this happens before the 4th and final auction for a round. The final auction for a round is here next to the board with these random cards that were drawn at the beginning of the game, and these are for victory points at the end of the game. You're basically bidding whatever resource it tells you. So in this case, it's wood. The one underneath it here would be coal. And you're going to bid that resource to put one of your cubes on this card to tell you, obviously you take the highest if you win. At the end of the game, for example here, you're going to get a certain amount of points for every train you have that's in the woods. Here you'll get points for every train. You'll take the number of different terrains your trains are on and multiply it by these. So the most I think you can get here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You get 28 points on the top one. Most in that type of terrain. Or here, income. So there's all sorts of these that are going to be out there, and each round at the end you're bidding to see how many points you'll get at the end of the game. So that's basically it. You're going to be keeping track of your victory points during the game. Technology cards are going to give them to you. Running your trains will give you victory points. Going to cities on the outside of the board. There's even some cards that are going to be out about connecting cities on the board. And if you connect these cities, you'll score some bonus points to the first people to do it, etc. if you connect them with your trains. And then the end game victory points from those cards on the side. Whoever has the most points is the winner. So this game fits a lot into this box. And by that, I mean, don't add anything else. You're not going to be able to close the lid if you do. It's weird. Now, I don't want to get on the wrong side of the Ian O'Toole fans out there. I think he does a great job graphically, but I think his graphic design is condensed in this. It is like because the game is not too big, everything's shrunk down. I found it a little more cluttered than I would normally.
And I understand what you mean by that. I think that the way the board is set up, where you've got, each phase kind of laid out on the board, and you've got the cards that are kind of specific to each of those phases that are near those areas, work well after you kind of know the game pretty well, and that's just kind of a reminder. It's not, you're not going to necessarily look at that to learn the game. It's nice to have there as like, okay, we're in this phase, we're in this round. It's not as clean as something like Smartphone Inc., for example, that had kind of the phases laid out on the board, but I still like that it's there.
No, I'm not complaining about that it's there. I'm just saying that some of it, just keep in mind that some of it's small and hard to see, I thought.
Yeah.
I also think it's hilarious. For me, this game is randomly determined in the sense of every game you play of this, the initial cities that you start at are going to be different because it's a deck of cards with millions of combinations. But if that drives you nuts and you think that's not enough, they included little tile pieces to put on the top of every tile so you can randomize the goods that are there. I will never do that. I mean, yay that it's there if you think that's a problem, but it would cause so much fiddliness on the board, I think.
Yeah, no, it says in the rule book to only use these, or don't use these in your starting games, and I'm with you. I don't feel the need to add any of those. I think that the game is plenty, randomized with the way that the card system sets it up anyway. And yeah, I don't think that the extra fiddliness is worth what change you might feel. I don't know if there's a huge amount of change that you'd feel because the route cards are going to be different every time you play. I don't think it needs it.
Now let's talk about auctions here. It's a very unique auction system where whoever wins pays full price and whoever loses pays no price, and some people pay half price depending on number of players. And I find it to be fascinating, especially considering that the thing that you're bidding with, you're also spending. This is most notable, I found, in the putting the trains on the boards one, where I could bid low and I might pick last, but then I have a whole lot of extra currency to spend and I can put more trains out on the board. But I am going to get the worst position, and I might not get one that's near my other trains because I did not mention this in the overview, and I should. You get points for all your connected trains at the end of the game, which is a big deal. But you have to, when you build them in the section where you are on the board. So you have to kind of extend and connect to your other network if you want to have a big connected thing, which you may not be able to do if you bid last.
Right, yeah, and you get to pick you pick your longest rail line, obviously, to kind of score those. But your point is taken. I love the way that auction system works, and as you said, your currency is also what you need, and then you'll sometimes have things where money can be used to add more trains. And it's just, it's a really interesting system. I think this is one of those games where, auction games, where you have to not just be thinking about the current auction at hand, you have to be thinking about what's coming later. And you might be like, okay, I'm going to kind of pull back here because I want to really load up on this one. Because you can also have, exchange. You have free actions of your resources can exchange for other resources, and I think you do that a lot in this game, where you maybe have a lot of resources for a particular phase that you don't think you're going to use many of them, so you start spending those down to convert to resources that you need to use in this phase. I like that flexibility, and I also feel like it opens up a lot more possibilities for each of those phases.
Yeah, but another thing I did not mention in my brief overview was the changing those two into anything. But if you get a lot, and there's something very satisfying about getting your income. If you don't increase your income tracks at all, you're still going to get two of each. But once you start increasing them and getting your income up and getting bonuses, and suddenly you have 20 coal or 20 money or something, and you're like, ooh, what can I do with this? You really can diverge, and you can put effort into getting points now, where you're constantly spending the resources you get. You might get a tech card that says, turn 4 coal into 8 victory points. You're like, yes, I'll keep doing that every turn. But then you have no coal. While someone else might be like really putting up that emphasis of getting resources, and that person could win every one of those, that last auction in a round. That's the victory points. And I feel like the game has some very different ways to go for strategy.
I agree. And I just kind of love the idea that in this game, almost everything is up for grabs and player determined. Now, certain things are not, right? You're going to have the random cards at the beginning of the game that are saying, these are the routes that are going to give you some bonuses and things along those lines. Sure. But in most other ways, the players are really driving what things are going to score, how they're going to score. And I really like that, because it takes an already interactive game and makes it even more so, because you really have to be thinking about, look, I already am like on the lowest rank of this particular thing that's going to score at the end of the game. So now I might need to shift. I don't really need to worry about that stuff as much. It's not going to score me very much. Let's shift to this, where I was able to get one of the top 2 spots on that scoring card. I think it's a really, really smart system.
Now, it isn't all roses for me here. I found that the connecting 2 city cards, I feel like they could have almost dropped that from the game, and I wouldn't have missed it, because, lots of train games do that. And in this one, there's so many other things to think about. Me connecting 2 spots of the board, and you're like, wow, this one worked out really well for me. I don't know. I wasn't as impressed with that part. It's also fiddly. As much as I like the game, it's fiddly, and I'll tell you what, explaining the train part, using coal to run your trains, I found to be such a pain. I don't know what it is. I understand it really well. I'm like, oh, I got it. Run these trains. Put these cars in the trains, run them. This one goes here. But it's not a intuitive concept, I think.
Well, I think it's not intuitive to train game players, if that makes sense to you. I think that I have not played a whole lot of train games, so I'm speaking a little bit from a point of ignorance here, but it seems like this game in some ways subverts train games a lot and also subverts auction games a lot. So for me, I've never been a huge train game player. I've played one 18XX game in my life. I've played a Crayon Rails game, I think. I've played a couple of other train-themed games, of course. I don't count really Ticket to Ride in that, but you know what I'm saying. But I've played a ton of auction games. And so I think that what you're talking about with that train system, maybe I didn't have as much of a problem with the group that I played with, didn't really have a problem with it, but I don't think that I played with people that were big train gamers. Do you think that has anything to do with it?
No, maybe it does. It doesn't. And again, some of my complaints are also everything is small, but I think it's easy to make mistakes. You have to remember that your station gives you income, and the other trains you put on cities give you those little train cars. Yeah. You need to remember to take those, and that's not a resource right away, but if you run its resource, and again, I like all this stuff. I just think the size of the board and everything also, there's just a lot of little pieces moving around. And even keeping track of your income and stuff, you have to kind of squint a bit to see what's going on, and you might miss a bonus if you're not careful.
Sure, that is true. I do think that they, going for this economy of space, and this is something that you tend to see with Japanese publishers. Now, I know that this is also being picked up by Cranio and some other publishers in other parts of the world, but they did keep it in a relatively small-sized box. It's not tiny, but there's a lot of game here, as you said, Tom, and a lot of phases and a lot of things you have to keep an eye on. You can miss little things here and there. I know that I did several times when I've played. So that is a consideration, and I was going to jump back really quickly. One of my complaints is one you just mentioned, which were those route cards. I also feel like sometimes they feel a little bit arbitrary, and also and this may be because I'm not a terribly good player of this game at this point, but I tend to be like, if those happen as a result of what else I'm really trying to do, that's great, but it never really drove my strategy. So yeah, I have a little bit of a nitpick with that, and I do agree that things may be a little more condensed than they need to be.
Now, I still like the game overall. I find it very fun. I think the auctions are solid. They're interesting. The game doesn't overstay its welcome. I mean, you have 16 auctions, right, over the course of the game, four auctions per round. I think the end game scoring bonuses versus getting tech cards now and scoring versus running a big train with lots of coal versus just spreading out all over the map as much as you can. I like the different aspects, and the way things come out are going to change every game. I mean, every game's going to feel different, and if that's enough randomness, they have that extra one I mentioned at the beginning. Yeah. It doesn't feel, I think I want to emphasize, if you're not a big train game, if you don't like the whole pick up and deliver, that's not really what this is. And it's not really about building routes all over the board. It's a little different than that. It's more about moving up tracks, which y'all know is something I like a lot. So this is a solid 8 for me. I think it's very good. It was a bit of a surprise because I was like, it's a train game, but the designers drew me in, and I left very happy and very satisfied.
Well, we have some things quite a bit in common here, Tom, in that this game also surprised me quite a bit. To be honest, a train theme is skirting on the negative side of neutral to me. Like, I don't really get attracted by train themes, but the designer was one that I have a lot of, appreciation for their designs. And then when I heard that there was a heavy auction element, that's where I was like, okay, I really need to take a look at this. And I'm actually giving an 8.5. I think it's because I love auction games. And I think that's something I do want to come across. Tom has mentioned it too, is that I think this game is probably more, well, not probably, in my opinion, it is much more an auction game than it is a train game. Yeah. It uses the trappings of a train game with like laying out your routes and things along those lines, and it very much looks like a train game. But to me, this is an auction game first and foremost, and I happen to really like auction games. And they're hard to do well, and I think that this one does it well in a couple of different ways. The way that the turn order works, makes for an incredibly interactive form of an auction. I really like the flexibility that you get through the conversion of the resources. So other than the nitpicks that we mentioned, I do think that it's hard sometimes to parse everything that's happening on the board. Some of the kind of goal things you're going for maybe don't need to be there. But overall, I just really was taken by this game and did not expect to enjoy it as much as I have. So 8.5.
Well, there you go, folks. That's Railway Boom. Before we jump off, I want to say thank you to some of our GameFound backers. We appreciate you. And say thank you to Thomas Lederer, to Mateo and his wife Miriam, and Malte Steph and Nat the Brat from Berlin. Thanks so much for supporting our show. Thanks for watching the review, everybody. Until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Mike DeLisio.
Choo-choo.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you like this review or whatever you just watched, wasn't it amazing? Check out our channel, Dice Tower. We have all kinds of things. We review games, we do top 10s, we play games live. It's all about board games, but especially the people who play them. Check out Dice Tower YouTube channel.